Hi, my name is Tazi, and I was raised by apes. When I was 8 years old, I have vague memories of being brought to this island by my human parents. I don't know why they were here. All I know is that they never survived. One night, a jaguar came into our shelter and killed them. I would have been jaguar food next if it weren't for the apes. One ape, I call her Ma, suddenly appeared and defeated the jaguar before it could eat me. Ma then found me, just a little girl, all alone, and decided to take me in. I've been living with the apes ever since. We don't have a language like humans do, but we communicate through our body movement. And since I was 8 years old when I was taken in by the apes, I could still speak some English, though not very well. It was tough adapting to this new life. I remember one time they were teaching me how to swing from tree to tree, and as I let go of the branch, it snapped and I nearly fell to my death. But Ma quickly jumped forward and rescued me. It's taken a lot of getting used to. But now, at 16 years of age, the apes have become my family, and I have become less of a human and more of an ape. Once my family started to trust me, they revealed to me something very special about them. Their hair is as strong as steel. For real! You could shoot an arrow at their back and it would not break through their hair armor. Because of this, I'd always felt self-conscious since I didn't have the same impenetrable hair as them on my body, but Ma always made sure I felt included. One day, we were patrolling the island's edge when suddenly Ma made a lot of noises and gestures towards the beach. We all gathered around and I gasped. There was what appeared to be a giant wooden thing on shore, which I now know was a boat. And from the boat, up popped a creature. And the strangest thing was, the creature looked just like me. Immediately, the other apes scattered and ran back home. Ma called me to come too, but curiosity got the better of me. I gestured to her to go on home while I went to investigate who this strange intruder was. Slowly, I watched the human as he walked towards the jungle's edge. He looked good. I suppose handsome was the word. And for some reason, I had this sudden urge to expose myself and come out into the open. Ah! Who are you? I crawled towards him, still on all fours. Strange. He walked just on his 2 legs. Curious, I slowly stood up in front of him, copying his movements. Who are you? Something clicked in my brain, an old memory. This language, English. I knew how to use it, but it was difficult. Me, Tazi. The guy looked flabbergasted. He stepped forward, and I reared back, hissing at him. Okay, I'm sorry. Do you live here? I processed his words, then nodded my head. By yourself? I shook my head. Family. You live here with your family. Who's your family? I pointed at the jungle. Apes. That's incredible. I stared at him, and he stared at me, and I felt a tug at my heart, although I wasn't quite sure why. Your name? He smiled. My name's Edward, and I'm an explorer from England. England? Yes, it's a cold and miserable place. Nothing like this beautiful island of yours. I just stared at him, unsure of what to say or do next. Listen, Tazi. Would you or your family mind if I stayed on this island for a while? I won't make much noise and I promise I won't bother you. I'm just a man who loves to travel, and I would really like to get to know you better, if that's all right. It took me some time to understand everything he said, but eventually I nodded. Yes, is okay. Edward grinned and he looked even more handsome. I think my stomach fluttered. It was such a peculiar feeling that I'd never experienced before. Can we meet again, same time tomorrow, same place? I nodded again, slightly dreamy. Great! It's nice to meet you, Tazi. I just stared at him. What was he doing? Edward seemed to understand, then gently held my hand and placed it in his, then raised it up and down several times, shaking hands. This is what we call a handshake. I stared in shock. It felt so strange, but also familiar? I was so confused, but also excited. As you can tell, I was feeling a lot of emotions at once. The next day, I returned to the same spot at the same time of day, and sure enough, there was Edward. This time, he had his own tiny tent on the beach with a small fire. He also had a stack of objects beside him. And it took me a lot of searching past memories to remember these were books. I've brought some English text to show you. If you would like, I could help you improve your English. I smiled. Okay. Thank you. Edward seemed to blush. Why was he blushing? I brushed the thought away and leaned in. Little Jane wanted to go to the market, but Little Jane didn't know which way to go. So Little Jane, it went on and on like that. For hours, Edward helped me learn more English. And by the end of our session, I had improved a lot. It seemed there had been a little vault in my brain where I had locked up my memories of English. But after Edward had helped me out, the vault had opened and now I could speak very well. Thank you, Edward. This has been so much fun. Of course, Tarzy. Anytime. Will you be back again tomorrow? Okay. I can trust you, right? Edward held a hand over his heart. Of course you can. I hesitated, but then I hugged Edward and ran off. Back behind the cover of trees, I turned to look at him to see his reaction. And he looked very flustered, but also very happy. I swung back through the jungle to where my family were resting. But when I arrived, I found them all gathered in a group. When I tried to enter their space to go to sleep, one of them screamed at me and pushed me away. I looked at Ma. She couldn't even make eye contact with me. I looked at all of their body language and I knew precisely what they were saying. You're not welcome here anymore. Tears welled in my eyes. Fine! I cried. They all looked at me strangely since I was speaking English. I don't need you anyway! I ran off, running on two legs as fast as I could, all the way back to Edward's tent. It was nighttime by now, so when I burst into his tent, he was very startled. Tarzy, are you okay? I leapt forward and hugged him. My family, they kicked me out. Can I stay with you? Edward looked very sad and hugged me closer. Of course you can. I'll look after you. I sighed deeply and that night I slept wrapped in his arms. The next day, when I woke up, I immediately wanted to go back to my ape family and apologize for what I'd said. Even if they wouldn't understand, Edward convinced me not to. Maybe it's best if you just stay here with me, where you belong. You are human after all. I don't know, Edward. They're my family. Look, I'm not saying you forget about them, but maybe taking a break would be helpful. Maybe you're right. Edward held my hand softly. Of course, it's entirely your decision. I'll stay with you. I was hoping you'd say that. For many weeks, Edward and I spent every day together. We got really close, and eventually I decided to tell him the secret about my ape family. They are very precious. Oh, I'm sure they are. No, I mean very precious. They have a very special ability. Oh? They have very strong hair. Strong hair? No, seriously, it's like strong as steel. Why are you laughing?
It's just funny the way you said it. Strong hair.
I smiled, then kissed him on the cheek. I'm so lucky to have you.
Trust me, I'm the lucky one.
I was the happiest I'd ever been in my life. Well, except for the fact that my ape family had ostracized me, but you can't win at everything. Suddenly, Edward looked very serious. There's something I have to tell you, Tarzy. What is it? Well, initially I came here alone, but tomorrow I think some of my other friends will be arriving here. Your other friends? Yes. But if you don't want them to be here, I'll tell them to leave straight away. No. I'd love to meet your friends. Great! I can't wait. The next day, just as he'd said, 2 giant boats arrived, loaded with other men just like Edward. Although they weren't nearly as handsome as he was. They arrived on shore with loud laughter, stomping along the plants and sand without any regret for the noise they were making. I was a little mad at first, but seeing Edward's happy face made me calm down.
Men, meet Tarzy. Boy, she is gorgeous.
You were raised by monkeys. Apes. That's mental.
Bonkers.
I laughed nervously. These men were certainly interesting. I wasn't sure if I quite liked humans.
We brought your pretty friend a dress to wear. Yes, something much better than those awful clothes of hers.
Men, don't speak to her that way.
No, Edward, it's all right. I'll wear the dress. Thank you for your gift. The men smiled, but for some reason their smiles made me uncomfortable. I went to change into the dress, and when I emerged, Edward looked in awe.
You're even more beautiful than before.
I blushed while the other men whooped and shouted. I did a little twirl. It felt nice. But then, suddenly, the cheerful shouts from the men turned into loud screams from the jungle. Emerging menacingly was my family, the apes.
Beasts! Monsters!
No, wait, they're not bad, But just as I was defending my family, I watched in horror as my cousin ran out and grabbed a barrel, throwing it and knocking one of the men out. They all erupted in screams.
Quick! Grab a weapon!
The apes attacked the humans. I knew my family was only doing this because they thought the humans were invading them, but they were wrong. It wasn't like that. Quickly, I ran in between the humans and apes. I went on all fours now, and I gestured at my family to retreat. Ma was there. She looked at me in my dress, a human dress, and she looked shocked.
Ma!
She backed away and ran off into the jungle. The others followed after her, leaving behind the chaos they had caused. I feel terrible. Because of me, the men's belongings had been destroyed, and some of them had been injured. Later that night, Edward and I were working on my English again in his tent. Edward, I feel terrible about today.
Don't be.
It's not your fault. But my family,
they were doing what they thought was right. I mean, I can understand why they did it. From their point of view, we're invading their land.
I'm glad you understand. But still, it's not right what they did.
Perhaps.
Edward, can I ask you a question?
Sure, Tarzy. What is it?
How do you tell someone you love them?
Well, you do this.
Edward lifted his hand and cupped my cheek.
I've been thinking a lot about you, and I've realized that I'm in love.
I love you, Edward.
I love you too.
We kissed for the first time, and it was new and wonderful. At that moment, I took back what I believed about humans. They couldn't all be bad, because after all, Edward was human. After we kissed, I left his tent to go sleep in a tree somewhere. When suddenly, I heard noises coming from within the jungle. They were human voices. Curious, I snuck into the jungle, climbed a tree, and headed towards the voices. What I discovered made my mind implode with shock. Edward's friends were all gathered in a circle in hushed voices.
We should do it at dawn.
Agreed. We'll take the apes and lock them up.
We're gonna be rich once we get them back home. Yes! And that stupid little girl has no idea we're about to steal those apes for their special strong hairs.
They all broke into obnoxious laughter while I cowered in shame. How dare they? I had to tell Edward immediately. Surely he could talk some sense into his friends. I rushed back as fast as I could and made it back to Edward's tent, waking him up. Edward! Edward!
Tarzy, what happened?
Your friends, they said they're gonna lock my family up and bring them to England. You have to stop them, Edward.
What?
Yes! You'll tell them not to, won't you? I expected him to scoop me up in his arms and tell me of course he would. Everything would be all right. But he didn't. Not by any stretch of the imagination.
Are you ready?
Edward was speaking to someone behind me. I turned to find the other men at the tent's entrance.
Yes, boss. Good. Sorry, kid. You were right to live with the apes. Us humans, we're not very good creatures.
He jerked his head at the men.
Lock her up!
What? No! Edward! Edward ignored my screams as the men dragged me into a cage and locked me inside. I pushed desperately, trying to break the bars, but to no avail.
How could you do this to me, Edward? It's not personal, Tarzy. Just business.
Edward left me behind without another word. I broke down into tears, feeling great agony in my soul. I felt like my heart was literally breaking in two. The next morning when I woke up, my eyes puffy from crying, I cried out in horror to find my family locked up in tiny cages all around the camp. The men, meanwhile, were laughing at the poor, innocent creatures as they tried to break free. But just like me, they were trapped. Edward! Let them go! Edward glanced at me. Please, Edward, I'll do anything.
You know, it's a shame, Tarzy. You're so beautiful. You would have made a nice wife.
Yes, I will be your wife. I will do as you say. Whatever you want, I will do it. Edward walked closer, intrigued. Just let them go, and I will do as you say. And maybe we can... Just as Edward leaned forward, I reached through the bars and grabbed his collar. I yanked him hard against the cage, knocking him out, then grabbed the keys at his belt. Humans could be so stupid sometimes. Had he really fallen for that trap? I quickly unlocked my cage and stepped out. Finally, freedom! She's out! Tazi's out! The men all swarmed around me in a panic when they noticed I had escaped. I cracked my neck, rolled my joints, and squatted down on all fours like the true ape that I was. Men, I readied myself. This may hurt. I pounced at them, knocking down one, then the other like flies. They didn't stand a chance against me. This was my island, my terrain. I had grown up here my entire life, while they were mere invaders. I fought them all off, and finally I knocked out the last man. He went crashing into the sand like an empty sack of potatoes. I turned to my family, all locked up. I quickly unlocked all of their cages with the keys I'd stolen, and we gathered together and embraced. I'd missed them so much, and it seemed they had finally accepted me back as well.
Hi, my name is Haley and I'm from Georgia. I've always been a good-looking girl, even in kindergarten. The girls in my class had always been jealous of my looks, especially Julissa, my rival since childhood. She was that rich and spoiled girl that everyone hates. How did our rivalry start? Well, it happened when we were in kindergarten. Hey, can I play with that?
No! Get your own doll!
She thought she was so cool, flexing her limited edition toys. You know it wouldn't hurt to share. You're mean. As I said that out loud, everyone agreed with me and called her mean too. And since then, Julissa was always trying to get back at me. She always used to flaunt her money, driving home in a Tesla, having the latest edition of clothes, gadgets, and whatnot. But she couldn't beat me in terms of looks. See, I was the cutest one around, with long, shiny black hair and brown eyes. I was taller than her as well. In fact, my height was perfect and very mature compared to the girls around me. By 4th grade, all the boys in my class had a crush on me. But sadly, my parents didn't allow me to have a boyfriend.
You cannot start dating until you reach high school.
It's for your own good.
So I listened to them. When I enrolled in middle school, I was taller than every girl in my form. So I stuck out. I loved the limelight. I was the most popular girl, much to the annoyance of Julissa. Her jealousy had turned into this mean girl whom everyone avoided. When teachers held her accountable for the tricks she pulled on me and the others, she used her father's position to get away with it.
My father is a senator. He can ruin your life. Now, Julissa, there's no need to get worked up.
So she got away with everything. But what good would that do? She was still alone. I was friends with almost everyone in school. The table I sat at during recess used to be crowded because I had so many admirers. I felt like some big shot celebrity.
Look at that weirdo sitting alone.
Hey, Julissa, you can come sit with us.
Like I'd ever want to sit with the likes of you.
I had tried to be friendly, but she didn't appreciate it. Pretty soon, it was summer break. I couldn't wait to get to high school and finally get a boyfriend. But then, during the summer, my height increased quite alarmingly. I had always been tall for my age, but now, I just couldn't stop growing. I was already 6 feet tall, and I hadn't stopped growing. I was almost afraid that I'd wake up one day and crash into the ceiling. One morning, when we were having breakfast, my mom shrieked.
Oh my God! Haley, you're growing!
I looked up from my cereal to look at my parents' horrified faces. And then I felt it. My legs getting longer, me getting much higher than the table. Mom, Dad, what is happening to me? They rushed me to a doctor who did some tests.
Your test results show that you are lactose intolerant. Besides that, all is clear.
What does that have to do with me growing?
Why don't you try drinking some of this milk?
He put the glass in front of me and I gulped it down. There were gasps from everyone as I started to grow taller. Again! Make it stop! Help! When I stopped growing, I looked at the doctor hopefully. Is there something we can do?
Yes, avoid all dairy products.
My diet was restricted from that day forth. After some time, I could actually see that my growth had stopped. I was 6 feet 4, right before I enrolled in high school. As I entered the school building, a ball came flying right at my head. But since I was tall, I caught it easily.
Whoa, there's Sasquatch.
It was a boy called Darren who had always had a crush on me, and now here he was making fun of me.
My goodness, Haley, is that really you?
Julissa burst into laughter after seeing me towering over all the boys my age.
What happened to you? Did you go through a nuclear accident or something?
The whole school hallway started laughing at her comment, even the people who used to hang out with me, and I thought they were my friends. I was super mad, so I walked away. As I was taking out books from my locker, I caught sight of Ryan. He had been my crush for so many years, and he had asked me out right before summer. I had told him to wait for me. Now was my chance. Hey Ryan, how's it going? Remember that date you asked me out on? I think I'm ready for it now. He looked up at me. I was quite a few inches taller than him.
You? What makes you think I want to date you?
That was it. Everyone's mean comments might have hurt, but Ryan's rejection totally broke my heart.
Move over, freak.
Who did he think he was? I was the prettiest girl in my form. I was sure I would get a boyfriend pretty soon. It was the beginning of junior year, so cheerleaders' tryouts were held on the very first day. I had always been active and did gymnastics in the past as well, so of course I signed up. And guess who else showed up? Julissa.
Hey, Giraffe! What are you doing here?
I could ask you the same thing. Didn't know they were picking losers.
Oh, I've actually already been selected as the head of the cheerleading squad.
What the heck? I marched straight up to the coach. Julissa has never even been into sports. She can't even run a lap. Why did you pick her?
Oh, now, Haley. You can still try out for the team. Calm down.
But something told me that Julissa was not going to let it happen easily. My fears were confirmed. When it was my turn, she whispered something into the coach's ear.
Haley, I'm afraid the formation won't work with you in the team. You're just so tall. We need the squad to look balanced out.
But that's not fair. I threw the pom-poms right at her feet and stomped away. Who cared about cheerleading anyway? School became boring. As Julissa headed the squad, she stole all my friends. She became very popular, and she was acing every class unlike her previous grades. Meanwhile, I found out that Romeo and Juliet was going to be performed at my school. I was a good actress, and fortunately, I loved poetry. So I learned the audition lines by heart before going there. I was sure that I was the best one at school for this role. When I went to the auditorium, I saw Julissa was already auditioning there. She was just throwing the lines with no feeling. I grinned at her terrible dialogue delivery. It was my time to shine. As I performed on the stage, I saw the drama teacher's face light up. I was nailing this. When everyone was done auditioning, she turned to me. This was my moment.
Haley, dear, although your performance was spectacular, there's not really any Romeo candidates who would look good by your side. So I'm afraid we'll have to give this role to Julissa this time.
Are you kidding me?
No need to feel down. We have other openings. Perhaps you could be a horse or a tree.
Yeah, no way, Julissa smirked. This had been humiliating enough. I left the auditorium. I couldn't believe that they wanted me to be a tree. Like heck I would. I stomped out angrily. During recess, I ate my lunch alone. I wasn't used to this. While I was busy eating, I heard someone yelling.
Yo! Look at Haley! She's getting bigger!
Oh no, not again. At home, my parents monitored everything I ate, but I had just eaten a whole cupcake, forgetting that there were probably dairy products used in it too.
Oh my god! She's a freak!
I hid my face and ran out of the cafeteria. The constant bullying, the degradation, the embarrassment put me down. Before, I used to beg to be seen. Now I just wanted to disappear. So I stopped dressing up. I started wearing these neutral-colored, enormous hoodies that maybe blend in easily. No one really noticed me anymore. With my hood up, I could easily pass as a regular tall guy. One day I was eating lunch alone as usual when some mashed potatoes came flying right on my head. My hair had been ruined. I turned around to see that it was Julissa. Not wasting a second, I hurled my own food at her face. She was angry as she wiped her face and grabbed a whole piece of blueberry pie, tossing it in my direction. I ducked and she missed. However, there were gasps as I turned to see that she had just hit a guy instead. Like me, he was really tall. Probably the only guy taller than me at the school. I hadn't seen him around here before.
It's her fault!
Yeah, right.
He sat down on my table.
I swear some people are worse than animals. Are you new here too?
Not exactly.
Then why are you having lunch by yourself?
Because people think I'm a freak because I'm too tall.
They're fools. Ignore them.
He smiled at me.
I'm Jay.
We shook hands, Haley, and for the first time I noticed how hot Jay was. He had these dreamy eyes with thick lashes. He was also quite fit. I almost drooled. We got talking. As he was new here and didn't know many people, we soon became friends. One day when I walked into school, I saw this huge banner on the hallway that said,
Haley, will you go out with me?
I turned around to see that it was Jay.
You're the most unique girl I ever met. I wanted to ask you out since the day I met you. So, what's your answer gonna be?
Yes, I would love to go out with you. He was the nicest guy I had ever met. We had so much fun together. Jay and I were literal couple goals.
Maybe you should try basketball.
Jay suggested. I decided to take his advice and join the school's basketball team. I was brilliant at it. With me on the team, our school won cup after cup. It was finally the homecoming match. I was going to take this win and become a star. We won the match, and I even scored the winning dunk. I looked at the crowd to spot my boyfriend, but he was nowhere in sight. Oh well, he must have gone to the bathroom. I couldn't wait to show him the cup, so I went there. I heard some voices in the corridor, so I stopped.
Does she suspect you?
It was Julissa's voice. This sounded secretive, so there's no way I'd miss hearing it.
Not a bit. She trusts me.
It was Jay's voice. I couldn't believe it. And were they talking about me?
But does she love you?
I don't know. She hasn't said it yet.
Then make her fall in love with you? Faster! What am I paying you for?
Such things take time.
Are you waiting for the school year to be over? Make her fall in love with you and then dump her!
All right.
Here's half the payment. You will get the rest when the job is done.
I sank to my knees. My heart was broken. Well and truly broken. Jay had been in on it from the start. I should have known it was too good to be true, but I couldn't let them see me like this. They would have succeeded in their purpose then. So I wiped my tears and left. That night, Jay bombarded my phone with calls and text messages, but I just ignored them. He didn't deserve me. It was time to focus on myself. Showing up at school the next day, everyone's eyes were on me. The way I had dressed, I looked nothing less than a model. Even my height didn't look bad with the confidence I was wearing. The outfit that I had chosen completely went with my long legs, plus I had just won the cup. I was the school star. Jay saw me and hurried towards me.
Where were you? I've been calling you the whole night. Did you even read my texts?
Why do you care? Go call Julissa since you two seem to be so close. I looked at him with hate in my eyes, and he immediately knew that I knew.
I can explain.
He stammered, but I wasn't going to listen to him. Save it! I flocked away to go see the principal and get some advice on my sports future. When I opened the door to the office, I saw the principal kissing a man. I was about to leave, but then I looked closely. It was none other than the senator, aka Julissa's dad.
You'll make sure that my daughter doesn't get bad grades?
He mumbled between the kisses. Ew.
Of course, honey. Why wouldn't I want the best for my future stepdaughter?
Honey? Stepdaughter? What on earth is going on? And then it struck me why Julissa had been acing every class when she had always done poorly at school. Why she had been made the leader of the cheerleading squad and even landed the role of Juliet. She was terrible at everything. No wonder she was getting all that because the principal had a conflict of interest. That was so unfair. I hurriedly took out my phone and snapped a few photos and a video as evidence. Then I quickly left. I'm not proud of what I did next, but I had to. Later, I went to the principal's office and showed her the evidence. You know what will happen to your career if this gets out.
What do you want?
I want the best opportunities this school has to offer. I'm not asking for anything I don't deserve, and you know it. She agreed. Things were great after that. I got lead roles. I even got a scholarship. One day, Jane came to me while I was practicing my lines for the lead role of a play. What are you doing here?
Won't you forgive me this once, Haley? I really love you.
Forget it. I don't want to ever see your face again. Leave me alone. As I was getting out there, I saw a shadow on the wall. Someone had been eavesdropping on us, and I knew that it was Julissa. She had put him at this yet again. An evil plan formulated in my head. It was time for her to pay. I started writing a love letter. Dear Julissa, I have always liked you. In fact, I tried to help you with the whole Haley matter just so I could get close to you. Meet me in the cafeteria during recess. Let me show you just how in love with you I am. Love, Jay. I slipped the note in Julissa's locker. Jay was a hot guy. I was sure that she'd been thrilled to receive his confession. I then went to Jay's locker and wrote a note from Julissa. Meet me in the cafeteria. There's something I want to discuss. And then I went to the cafeteria to watch the show because it was almost recess. The cafeteria was flooded with students. The more the audience, the better it would be. Jay was already there waiting at the table. I saw Julissa happily making her way towards him.
Oh, Jay, I always knew you liked me.
She said these words quite loud, and all necks turned towards their table.
What?
I'm so happy you confessed. I like you too.
I never said I like you. Now what did you want to discuss?
But earlier you...
I watched her getting embarrassed in front of the whole school. She realized that this was a prank. Julissa got up and angrily left the room. Even if this was a prank, she had just told everyone that she liked Jay. Julissa was rejected in front of the whole school. This time, it was her who was in everyone's whispers. As for me, I used my condition as if it was a superpower. I got into beauty pageants and was named Georgia's tallest supermodel. I was different, but I was also amazing. Hi, my name is Perry. Please like and subscribe. The day I was born, my parents shrieked. "She is all white!" I was so pale that I appeared white, with very light brown eyes and beach blonde hair.
But she's so pretty.
And yes, according to my dad, I was still a stunner. The doctors diagnosed me with albinism. It wasn't life-threatening, but it wasn't going to be easy either. When I was 7, I was playing in the park. "Hey, can we play?" "Go away, Dracula." And with that, she ran away. It wasn't the first time something like this happened. My unusual appearance freaked other kids out all the time. I went to my dad in tears.
Oh, honey, the kids are jealous because you're so pretty.
"Pretty? I'm a weirdo." "More reason why you should always stay indoors, sweetie."
Don't say that. A few minutes in the sun won't hurt.
Mom just huffed and walked off. My dad always had my back, and I was super grateful for it. Just a few words from him, and I would be feeling like a princess. But my mom was a different matter. I wouldn't really say she hated me, but she seemed to resent any attempts I made to socialize. When I was 8, Dad got a new job, and we moved from our home in Louisiana to Texas.
Come on, honey, I'll take you to school today.
"But Dad, it's your first day at work."
It's your first day at your new school, and I want to take you.
"You will be late for work, dear. We didn't come all the way here for you to be fired on your first day. She can take the bus."
No, I want to take my sweet angel there myself.
"Oh, Daddy. See what I told you about my dad loving me to bits?" Mom glared at me as we hugged, and I stuck my tongue out at her. He drove me to school with one of his sleek sports cars, instantly drawing every eye to me when I stepped out. I was very self-conscious. Soon, the teacher called on me to introduce myself. It was my first class in 3rd grade, and I was really nervous, so I fumbled for the words for a while. Perry, my name, my... Just then, a kid with a bean-shaped head threw a paper plane at me. "Hey, Four Eyes, were you born in a cave?" As if a bomb had been set off, all the kids started pointing at me and laughing, making fun of my unusual skin. "She's like an ugly Snow White." The teacher tried to bring the class under control, but they were really out of it. Just as I was about to run away from the class and find somewhere to cry, a boy stood up.
Hey, at least she's pretty, unlike you, beanhead.
That shut the boy up and quieted the class down. I was glad to return to my seat and stole glances at the boy who had defended me in class. He didn't even look my way. When I returned home, I told my mom everything that had happened. "Oh, those nasty brats. But that sweet little boy, what's his name again?" "Greg. He did well defending you. That was so sweet." I was surprised at the unexpected comfort from her, but soaked it in happily. However, to my shock, when I came downstairs the next day ready for school, my parents told me I would have to quit school. What? Why?
It's the best way to protect you, my dear. You will be homeschooled for now.
But I want to go outside. I want to go to a school where there are other kids.
Yeah, other kids that are mean to you.
They're not all bad. Perry, the answer is no. We are doing what is best for you and make you the most comfortable. This way, you won't have to worry about sunburns or being called nasty names. And just like that, my life was swept from beneath my feet. My parents employed teacher after teacher to teach me. And if they so much as looked at me the wrong way, Dad had them fired. This continued for 8 years. During that time, I developed the hobby of sitting under the pomegranate tree that marked the boundary of our lawn from our neighbors. I would read, and sometimes I would fantasize about the boy from 6 years ago, Greg. It was the only time of day I could do so without fear of being burned by the sun. One evening, I grabbed a book as usual and made my way to the tree. But to my shock, someone was sitting there. "Hey, that's my spot!" When the person turned to face me, my heart stopped. I would recognize that face anywhere. Greg! He was even more handsome now.
It's my spot now.
He didn't seem to have recognized me. "What are you doing here?"
Excuse me, I live here.
"What the heck? But how?" The question must have sounded dumb to his ears because he gave me a droll stare and said,
Are you living underground or something? I moved in with my mom to the next house to yours about a week ago.
"A week? Wow, good to see you again, Greg."
Excuse me? Do I know you from somewhere? How do you know my name?
Oh boy, I wanted to kick myself for the slip. Greg and I hadn't even spoken the first time we met, so he must be pretty freaked out that I'd know his name. I'm just really good with guessing names. I'm not a stalker, I swear. You can take the spot for today. I'll see you later. I turned around to make my escape, but Greg caught my wrist and spun me around to face him. My heart raced as he looked into my eyes for several seconds before he asked in a very low voice,
Why did you run away?
"Excuse me?"
Who quit school after one day?
I realized then that Greg had recognized me. "You remember me?"
The white angel that I didn't get to see again? I never got your name.
"I'm Perry, and I never got to thank you for standing up for me. Thank you."
That's okay, so why did you leave?
After I told him everything, he was really upset at my parents.
Why would they do that? 8 years without leaving the house?
It's for my own good. He didn't say anything afterwards, but I could tell he was really angry. My life became pretty much a fairy tale then. Every evening, Greg and I would meet at the tree and talk or play games. He would tell me about all the craziness of high school while I drank it up like a thirsty dog, wishing I could experience most of what he said. When I introduced him to my dad as my hero from the past, Dad was ecstatic and invited Greg and Greg's mom over for dinner. My mom was sulky about it. "Seriously? He saved her like, what, a decade ago, and you still feel the need to say thank you?" "It was 8 years ago, Mom."
We're not just saying thank you, we're celebrating Perry's first friend.
"A first friend that could still be nasty to her one day. Don't you think you're already being nasty to me?" "Sorry if the truth hurts, Missy." Despite Mom's protests, Dad wouldn't budge. Greg was coming to dinner. Dinner was super fun. Greg's mom seemed to really like me, but I could sense that she was holding some kind of anger back. The ice broke when she asked my mom, "You said you didn't have a child." My stomach dropped, and I looked at my mom in shock. "Mom, what is she talking about?" Dad was just as shocked. "It's still for your own good, Perry. I thought it was best for people not to come here to bother you. But I will make an exception for Greg and his mom." I couldn't take it anymore. "So you tell people you are childless because I am an albino?" To my surprise, Mom glared right back at me. "You think it's easy to have an albino child? Other kids go out in the sun and play like there's no tomorrow. But you? The moment you do, you are red and blotchy and it's just so, all of the things you could be, Perry. Why did you have to be born an albino?" I was speechless at the outburst. I couldn't believe that Mom had such resentment for me deep in her heart. Before I could speak, Greg's mom spoke up. "You want to know what other things your daughter could be, Mrs. Will? She could be dead." I gaped at her, and then at Greg, but he just gestured for me to calm down and listen. 8 years and 2 months ago, I lost my first child. She was albino. So beautiful. But I did the opposite of what you are doing now. In an attempt to let her live a life like other kids, I let her play in the sun with just a bit of sunscreen because she kept complaining it made her sweat too much. Skin cancer came and, well, she's gone. Greg had tears in his eyes and his mom spoke and I couldn't stop myself either. No wonder he stood up for me so fiercely back then in class. "Oh, well, you see, I'm only doing her a favor."
By telling people we are childless?
Mom huffed, turned on her feet, and stormed away without so much as an apology. I didn't sleep that whole night, but stayed awake watching videos from my favorite channel, Storytime Animated. My dad knocked at my door and pleaded me to open it, but I ignored him. It was true he hadn't known about Mom's hidden hatred, but I was still mad at him for going along with her plan to shut me inside. Then I got a message from an unknown number. When I opened it, I saw it was a message from Greg, asking me to look out my window. I did, and a grin bloomed on my face when I saw that he was there in the dark, holding up a bunch of flowers.
Hey, can you come down here for a bit?
From my bedroom window, I climbed down and met him on the lawn. We said nothing for a while, staring at the stars. "I'm sorry about your sister, I didn't know."
It's the past.
"Is that why you are friendly to me? Because I remind you of her?"
I like you very much, Perry. Not because I'm fascinated with your unique coloring. 8 years ago I was, but now hanging out with you, I have come to see who you really are, and I'm in love with that person. You have such a good heart.
My heart soared at the words, and I stared into his beautiful eyes. "I love you too." When our lips pressed together, I could barely remember why I was upset.
Did I tell you my mom is a certified dermatologist? She's pursued the career a year after my sister's death, and is soon to launch a line of cosmetic products specifically designed for the needs of albinos. She would like you to be the face of her company.
What? Really? Yes, Perry. Really. I turned in surprise to see Greg's mom coming towards us with a kind smile on her face. "I am sorry for ruining the lovely dinner today, Perry. I just couldn't bear seeing your mother treat you that way." "It's okay. At least now I know how my mom really feels about me. She offered again for me to be the face of the cosmetic line she was about to launch, and I said yes. My rise to stardom was swift. The products Greg's mom produced was a special sunscreen that was light yet effective, and still nourished the skin and made it glow. I didn't have to wear those oversized clothes and hats anymore. Soon I was on billboards and on the front page of magazines. I was dubbed the Snow Princess. Other companies sought me out for adverts, loving how I glowed and praising my unique beauty, but I turned them down, exclusively dedicated to working for Greg's mom. Plus, she paid 10 times more than any adult could even dream of getting. At home, things between myself and my parents were still a bit tense.
What would you like to have for breakfast, Perry?
Nothing that you make. Mom and Dad argued a lot now. She even threw things at him and swore not to apologize to me despite Dad's pleas to.
I am not saying sorry. You can ask me 100 times. She is just being a brat.
Dad and I were still trying to rekindle our relationship, but Mom wasn't helping things at all. He was really happy with my modeling career. Mom was not.
Yeah, you're a model now, but it's just a matter of months before people get bored of you.
I rolled my eyes. By now, I had made peace with the fact that Mom just didn't like me. Nothing I did impressed her, and I was so done. You know what? Maybe I should just leave this place so you can truly be childless.
Can I come with you, Perry?
I couldn't believe my ears. I turned to my dad and he looked dead serious.
I think I might die if I continue living with this woman.
And just like that, we got another apartment. Mom didn't even apologize. I heard from Greg that she moved out a week later to God knows where. Good riddance. With Mom's nuisance absent, Dad and I were happier than ever, or at least tried to be. We both missed her a bit, save for her craziness. She wasn't an entirely bad person, but we tried to shake it off by goofing around with each other. The first day I attended school with Greg, it felt like I was born anew. I wore regular clothes out in the sun and my color remained as it were. Several people complimented my looks and many others squealed when they recognized me as the Snow Princess.
Oh my god, you look like Princess Elsa from the animation. So beautiful.
And Greg and I were going on strong with our parents' approval. We planned to go to the same university.
So you said you'd tell me what you will do with some of the wealth you've acquired so far.
Yeah, I want to give 70% of my earnings to the National Organism for Albinism and Hypopigmentation to help as many specially colored people as possible have access to proper skincare.
Wow, see what I said? You're not just pretty, you have a good heart too. Perry, you're 1 in a million, literally and figuratively.
You always make me blush. We were just about to kiss when I saw from the corner of my eye, Mom!
Hey Perry, I've been looking all over for you. I really wronged you and your dad. I need your forgiveness.
Seeing my mom that way, I couldn't stop the tears that filled my eyes. Truth was, I had missed her a lot. She may not have been the best mom, but we had shared some good memories. Is that all you need, Mom?
No, I need us to be a family again. I miss you and your dad. Please give me another chance.
Greg looked at me and gave me an encouraging nod, but I hardly needed his approval to rush into my mother's arms. Welcome back, Mom.
Hi, my name's Crystal. Please like and subscribe. Growing up, I didn't have many friends. No one so much as looked at me, let alone speak to me. Well, except for Allie, my best friend, and my only friend. The first time Allie and I met was when we were 5 years old.
Hey! Give that back! Dance for me first!
Embarrassed, I stood up and began to dance a little. But then suddenly, this other girl barged in and shoved the kid away. She grabbed my toy and handed it back to me. I was in awe.
Here you go.
Thanks! We've been best friends ever since. I was used to never getting attention, until the day that changed the rest of my life forever. Allie and I were sitting at our usual spot in the cafeteria when suddenly there was a bunch of commotion outside. Everyone was shouting and running out into the field. Let's go check it out. We ran outside to find a giant banner flying across the sky, pulled by a plane. It said, "Bow to your new king, King Dante." What's going on? Suddenly, a figure leaped out of the plane and fell straight towards us.
Ah! He's gonna die!
But then the skydiver yanked on his bag and a parachute opened up. The crowd gasped and clapped until finally he arrived in front of us. The guy pulled off his mask, and I knew everyone was thinking the same thing. He was so handsome. "Hello, commoners! I am King Dante.
I will be moving to this school and I can't wait to rule this place.
Seriously, who was this guy? Suddenly, Dante turned his head and looked right at me.
Is something funny?
No, nothing. I couldn't hold it in. Crystal! Dante walked towards us slowly.
What's your name? Crystal? Listen here, Crystal. I don't have time to deal with peasants like you.
A smile slipped off from my face.
What did you just call me? You heard me. Now bow down.
I beg your pardon?
Granted.
What? Crystal, come on, just do it. And you can't believe what she did. She actually went down onto her knees and bowed to him. Nuh-uh. I wasn't having any of that.
Go on, Crystal. Follow your friend. Unlike you, she's got a brain.
Crystal, hurry!
Come on, sweetie, just...
I don't know what came over me. 1 second my arm was by my side, and the next second it had pulled back and swung around with enormous speed, punching Dante right in his snobby face. Ow! The crowd gasped. A teacher appeared.
Crystal! Detention! Now!
I was too stunned to move. What was that? Later in the principal's office, Principal Morgan was really scolding me.
This is so unlike you, Crystal. You're usually very quiet and mellow. What happened?
I agree. He must have done something horrible to cause such a reaction. What did he do, sweetie? He asked me to bow to him. Okay, while that is bad, that does not justify punching him. I'm sorry, Crystal, but I'm going to have to expel you. What? Dante is the son of the mayor of this town. I have to set a precedent. But... Principal Morgan stood up and approached me. I'll be taking your... And suddenly a tingling sensation erupted across my skin. And just like before, my limbs moved of their own accord and swiped Principal Morgan off her feet. She came crashing down. Crystal! She's definitely expelled now! Something was wrong with me. Mom agreed and took me to the hospital that evening. And after running several tests, the doctors came to a dark conclusion.
She has a rare condition called ninja-loxia.
What does that mean?
It's a rare condition that basically turns her into a ninja whenever she feels threatened. I advise you to learn how to control it so you don't seriously hurt someone.
Is there nothing else we can do?
I'm afraid not.
Luckily, Mom was able to give Principal Morgan the doctor's report so I could still stay at school. But the news of my condition had left me shocked. I didn't want to hurt anyone. The next day at school, we were in the cafeteria again when I saw Dante walk in. He had a band-aid on the side of his face where I had punched him. I'm gonna go apologize to him. No, don't! He doesn't deserve it. He's a jerk. Maybe, but I should still apologize. I managed to escape Allie's grasps and walk up to Dante. He had 2 other guys beside him. It looked like he'd managed to get a group of sheep already.
Back off, pea-brains! Yeah, unless you want a knuckle sandwich! Shut it, thing 1 and thing 2!
Dante, What? I wanted to say I'm sorry. I'm sorry for punching you. I never should have resorted to violence. Can you forgive me? Dante said nothing. He just looked at me. He had a weird expression on his face, too. After a while, I just left. It was so awkward. Later, Allie and I were at the skate park, skating around like we usually did. I flew off the ramp, but while I was in the air, my feet slipped from the board. Crystal, look out! I was heading straight for the fence. If I didn't do something quick, I would be fence food. Suddenly, my body curled into a ball and I flipped and landed on my feet, avoiding the fence, as if I were Spider-Man. No, as if I were a ninja. That was awesome! Really? Suddenly, we heard slow clapping and one of Dante's goons appeared.
Wow! Amazing!
Then Dante and his other friend appeared.
What are you doing here? We've come to give you the payback you deserve! You defied King Dante. You know what happens to people who defy the crown.
I felt my body ready into a defensive stance. No! Control yourself!
Come on, Dante! Let's show this little girl what you're made of!
Yeah, go King Dante! Dante stood there. I couldn't tell what he was thinking. What was he planning to do first? Punch me? Kick me? But a minute passed, and still he did nothing. He just stared at me. His goons looked confused, then one of them stepped forward. Oh, of course! Why should King Dante do the dirty work? Let me beat this brat! Do it! He advanced towards me, and I readied to defend myself, but suddenly the dude went flying and crashed to the ground! What had just happened? I looked up and saw Dante glaring at his friend with disgust. Don't you dare hurt her! Huh? Dante looked up at me. Was it just me, or was he blushing?
I'm so sorry for how we've behaved, Crystal. Goodbye.
And they left. Just like that. Allie and I looked at each other in shock. Had that really just happened? I had no idea what to make of that ordeal, but I knew my body was experiencing a crazy amount of emotions because that night I had a crazy nightmare. I was running down the road and someone was chasing me. For some reason, they had Allie's voice, even though it was a man. The man chased me and cornered me in an alleyway. I readied my hand back, then punched him with all my might. Suddenly, I heard a scream and woke up. Mom was on the ground, holding a bruised eye. Mom! Did I hit you? Mom quickly got up to comfort me. It's all right, honey. Really? I was horrified at myself. I couldn't stay here. I couldn't risk it. I ran between Mom's outstretched arms and leapt out of the open window. No! Crystal, wait! I ran down the street as fast as I could. It was pouring rain and I couldn't see clearly in the darkness. I crossed the street and narrowly missed being run over. I made it to a quieter part of town. I didn't know where I was heading. What should I do? Lost, little girl? 6 men surrounded me. They all looked like crooked thieves. Be a good little girl and give us all your money. I don't have any on me. We'll see about that. They pressed in closer and just like that, I switched. I was in survival mode. My ears sharpened, my vision cleared. I was ready. They didn't stand a chance. I knocked out the first guy with a quick jab, then the other went down with my flying kick. Down they went one after another, until just one remained. Wait, please! I did a backflip, crushing his temple with my foot, and he too went crumbling down like a sandcastle. I breathed heavily. That was awesome! But then a tingling sensation spread over my body, and I spotted more thieves swarming out of the darkness. Oh, you! You'll pay for what you did to our friends! There were too many of them. I didn't think I could handle them all at once. Then suddenly a car screeched and skidded to a stop beside me. The door opened and I couldn't believe who was in the back seat. Get in! I hesitated. Who would I rather? Dozens of thieves who were out to get me? Or Dante? It was a hard choice, but eventually I leapt into the car with Dante and we sped off. Thank you for saving me. Don't mention it. Dante asked his driver to take us to a scenic view of the ocean so we could cool down. I hopped out of the car as soon as we arrived and sat down on the cliff ledge. I heard Dante follow after me and sit down too.
So, you gonna tell me what happened?
Just got into a little trouble.
What are you doing out at this time of night?
Why do you care? Dante looked a little hurt. I sighed.
I'm sorry. I'm just a little on edge.
No, don't apologize. I should be the one. He looked away. What was up with him? Are you okay?
Me? Yeah, of course. I wasn't the one who was just attacked by a gang of thieves.
True. But still. I put my hand on his. You okay? He stiffened, then let out a sigh.
I like you.
I froze.
What? I like you, okay? I like you. You're the only girl who actually cares, who actually looks at me, who sees me, who...
He bit his lip. I've said too much, and I don't know what happened. Just like how my body moved of its own accord whenever it felt threatened, it moved of its own accord now, but for an entirely different reason. I gently turned his face to me and leaned in and kissed him. It felt like my heart was dancing inside. When we finally broke away, Dante looked like he was on cloud 9. Wow. I was shocked by this sudden turn of events. Who knew I would be kissing King Dante? But he had changed. He wasn't the snobby King Dante he used to be. Listen, I'm throwing a birthday party tomorrow. You should come. Sure. Can I bring Allie?
Allie?
My best friend. Of course. Thanks. I kissed him again on the cheek, and later he dropped me back home. When Mom saw me, she embraced me. Where have you been? I've been worried sick. Mom, you have no idea. The next day, Allie and I walked over to Dante's house. Did I say house? I meant mansion. Seriously, his dad had big bucks. We rang the doorbell and Dante opened the door. Crystal, Allie, you both look amazing. Thanks, Dante. We entered and he led us around to where the other party guests were gathered. We're about to cut the cake. You know the rules, Dante. You have to give the first slice to the person you like the most. Dante blushed, then promptly handed me the first slice without any hesitation. Now it was my turn to blush while the whole crowd whooped and hollered. I turned to look at Allie, but she seemed to have disappeared. Are you enjoying the party? It's great. I'll be right back. I'm just gonna get us some juice. But he didn't get right back. It was an hour before I saw him again, and only after I looked around the whole giant house. Eventually, I found him out on the balcony. Dante, what are you doing out here? Dante sniffled. Had he been crying? What's wrong? Why do you care? What? Dante, what are you talking about? It's fine. You don't have to pretend anymore. Allie told me everything. What? She told me how you were only pretending to like me back. You were just doing some giant scheme to get me kicked out of school. Fine. See if I care. I'm moving out of town. But Dante! He brushed past me and disappeared into another room. I was speechless. Why had Allie told him that? I went downstairs to try and find Allie. Have you seen Allie? I think I saw her by the snacks table. I ran over and sure enough, there she was, nibbling on some Doritos innocently. Allie! Allie spun around. Oh, it's you. Why did you do it, Allie? I don't know what you're talking about. Don't lie to me. Just shut up and ninja your way back home. My body began to move, and suddenly the bowl of punch was in my hands. Wait, what are you? Too late. I hurled the bowl of punch straight at her, and it smashed her right in the face. She was drenched. Everyone started laughing and pointing at her. Suddenly I felt guilty. Allie, I'm sorry, Wait! I followed after her down the street, searching for her blue hair. Suddenly I felt a tingling sensation again, and I turned to my left. There, in the bushes. I rushed over to find Allie sitting there on her own, drawing in the dirt. Allie? Ah! How did you find me? Allie, why did you tell Dante those lies? Allie looked like she was about to cry. Then finally she exploded. I'm so sorry! Huh? Allie collapsed onto me, holding me tight. I'm sorry I did it! But why did you? Because I have a crush on Dante! What? I did the moment I saw him, but he only had eyes for you. I got so jealous. I'm so sorry, Crystal. I never should have let a guy come between us. Please, will you forgive me? I looked at Crystal in her puffy eyes and smiled kindly. Of course I forgive you. You're my best friend. We hugged, then Allie stood up suddenly. I'm gonna go tell Dante the truth right now. Don't bother. I didn't really like him that much anyway. He's kinda needy. Allie looked shocked, then laughed out loud. I laughed with her. Then we linked arms and headed down the street. Best friends for life!